I still think in the next 12 months, my low ballpark would be around K per Bitcoin. And the high price, I would say maybe around a million or more. But this will be dependent on some catastrophic event that basically cause problem in the economy.
You see that Michael Saylor came out recently talking about how Bitcoin could reach 13 million in 21 years. And in this show today, we're going to talk about why that might be underestimation. And when you look at the other factors and you look at the other institutions like VanEck, they're all underestimating the actual price of Bitcoin. And there's a specific reason as to why they're underestimating this. And we're going to discuss this today with crypto rookies, also known as Patrick. We're going to talk about what to expect, where is Bitcoin now, where it's headed, and then also ultimately why everyone is underestimating the actual price of Bitcoin. How are you doing, Patrick?
I'm great.
Yeah, so let's talk about where we are right now. Obviously, 57,700, we were down, now we're up again. If you look at the traditional stock markets right now, it seems like there's a little bit more confidence about where we're going. Initially, there was less, but towards the end of the day, the market did respond positively. And so will this trend continue, and will that impact crypto, specifically Bitcoin?
At some point, the market will go up. And once it go up, I think it will go up really fast until people get too greedy and use too much leverage again. And then there will be some pretty hard chop along the way. So I think the enemy right now is that we cannot use the same technique as we used to in the past cycles. We have to be a lot more risk averse because otherwise we'll end up losing everything while the bull market is going up like crazy. I still think in the next 12 months, my low ballpark would be around K per Bitcoin. And the high price, I would say maybe around a million or more. But this will be dependent on some catastrophic event that basically cause problem in the economy and force the government to print like crazy. This could be, like a US civil war, a third world war, something extreme like that. I think could push the price of Bitcoin up massively just because it would be a hedge against the decline of global reserve currency, which is the US currency. So to me,
But are
that's
there enough smart people, Patrick, to really understand that that is the value proposition of Bitcoin in order, like,
yeah.
could it really force it to go that high?
I've been saying the price of Bitcoin is only what people are willing to sell at. If nobody is selling anymore, the price will go up exponentially. 1 million, it's not super relevant to be honest. It's if nobody is willing to sell at 1 million, then it could go to 2 million. You need to have the bulk of buyer that still want it to meet in the middle with the people who are willing to sell. But if all of the weak end have been shaken out of the market and only BlackRock and the big ETF are left and they bought for the next 10 years, who's going to be left to sell? I think the price could go up exponentially at that point.
You're saying that within a year, 200K, maybe even as much as 1 million, depending on what's going on from a war
Yeah,
perspective.
because that's the thing. It's with the US election coming up. I don't think it's going to be a clean election. So what's going to happen out of that? Let's see. But to me, fear that this could be a big problem that will maybe decline because we've seen the decline of the global reserve currency being the US currency. Like a lot of countries are no longer using it to settle for oil, payments and all that stuff. So I think it's getting removed. It's losing its status as a global reserve currency. So, and that brings me to the next point is that what is the long-term price prediction? And I think, like you said yourself, Michael Saylor has a $13 million kind of middle ground case for the next 21 years. I think it's grossly underestimating. And the reason is currency debasement. If there's a civil war in the US, and if there's a third world war, and it's not the US that win, and then countries are no longer being forced at gunpoint to use US currency for settlement between themselves, the US currency itself could get devalued massively. I think since the 1910 to 2020, you've seen the decrease of purchasing power happen quite like it's a big catastrophe. Like when you think about it, and I think you don't really see this happening when you live inside of the US and you don't interact elsewhere. If all currency in the world suffer the same fate, and they all do, then they're all competing with each other, but they are all kind of declining at the same speed. What this means is that it's the price of goods and services and assets that are growing really rapidly. So when you buy real estate, you're not actually making money from the capital gains, and the value of the house over the years is actually not increasing your purchasing power. You're just maintaining probably the currency debasement. So it's probably very close to each other. So that means that when you buy a house or real estate, you're not increasing your capital, you're just preserving your capital or your purchasing power. So that's really important to understand this. And this, there's period that was pretty extreme in terms of debasement, but I think we've seen nothing. The US lose its status as a global reserve currency. Buying a loaf of bread, could cost $200. So if a loaf of bread costs $200, like in 20 years, what makes you think that Bitcoin should be worth $13 million?
So going back to the prediction that Michael Saylor made, 13 million, and you're saying that it's grossly undervalued, that it's probably even more than that. Do you have any numbers in mind?
But to me, the thing, by the same time frame that he mentioned, I would say it's
Years.
several hundred millions to a few billion. I think it sounds crazy to say, but again, we've seen the purchasing power. I used to be able to buy breakfast when I was young, like 30 years ago, for $2 or less than $2 breakfast in a restaurant. Now it's $15 to $20. Like it's crazy. It's a factor of 10 in 30 years. But this, as I'm saying, it's going to accelerate because the income is not sufficient to service the debt anymore. Not like what it was 30 years ago.
Thanks so much for sharing your insights as always and showing us the importance of the actual devaluation of the currency. And that's why we're in Bitcoin, and that's why we're really excited about the next bull cycle. So let's get ready.